I am Elizabeth Toledo. I am the Executive Director of the Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center, and that is a nonprofit organization here in Phoenix, in the heart of Phoenix. And what we do is that we promote local artists, upcoming artists of the community. How did I get there is a pretty good story. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and in Sonora. I went to U of A, I majored in art. I needed to work. The 80s came, and I needed to work, and so I could substitute teach with a degree. And I ended up getting a degree in teaching. I ended up teaching art and music. Then from there, I went on to becoming a school administrator, so I needed to get a master's degree in school administration. And this is a person who hates school. I always hated school. And then I ended up doing this. My friends were like, "Estás loca, you?" And well, I did. But I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved working with the students and the families and promoting and being an advocate for the artists and for art. It's very difficult when you love something, you have a passion for something like the arts and teaching students, teaching children how to express themselves. Some of the kids of our community, I worked in mostly Title I schools. Their language in both languages are limited. Their vocabulary in both languages are limited in Spanish and English. And I was a bilingual teacher, and I realized when I was beginning to teach art, I realized that that's how they expressed themselves, was through music or through art. And it became more of a passion for me. I said, these kids need to express themselves and they need to feel proud of what they're doing. As an administrator, I was always an advocate for that, for the arts. And then I decided I needed to retire. It was time for me to retire. One of my former bosses, who was on the board for the Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center, I ran into him in a conference, and he said, "So what are you doing? I heard you're retiring. What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to get back to my artwork. I'm going to get back to my love." And he said, "Well, we need you at the Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center." And so, he was my boss. I needed to listen to it. And so I ended up at Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center, and I was working there for a while. I was volunteering my time, and I loved it. And I was painting again. And then they needed somebody to run it, or the doors were going to close. And I said, "We can't close the door." Here comes my passion again. We cannot close the doors, because then what's going to happen to these people, all these artists? We also have La Tiendita, which is the gift shop, and I would say 95% of what is in there is made by local artisans. And so how are we going to do that? So anyway, here I am. I'm still there, doing events, doing just many things, and I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. Well, from the beginning that I started to do designs for Chingona souls and participating in the events, it always had to do with women. The stiletto has to do with women. It has to do, I see a stiletto and I see business. And I see a woman who is in power in one way or another. And so when Chingona souls, the first time I was approached for Chingona souls, the funds were going to go to women who were in homes for battered women and stuff like that. And so they were training them. It was part of learn how to dress, and they were training them how to dress and how to do interviews and stuff like that, and so they could go out into the workforce. So this stiletto for this year, it has to do with the glass ceilings. And so I'm using broken glass for it. And what I'm trying to say is that a stiletto, broke the ceiling, but they're sharp edges. It's not going to be a smooth edge. It's very sharp. It's not easy to work with. I have to be very careful with my hands. There's thick pieces, and I really enjoy doing this because some of the pieces, after we broke the glass, there's some sharp edges in there, because it's not like you just need to be la Chingona or you need to be the tough person to do this, but you also have to be careful. When you get into a position, and especially when it's overrun by males, and they're not accustomed to having women there, and especially sometimes women of color is even more of a barrier or more of a challenge. There's sharp edges. You can bleed sometimes, but you have to keep on. Your shoe is dangerous, and you can cut yourself, but you have to keep on. So that's like a metaphor of my shoes. My shoes are always metaphors. One of the shoes I did one year, it looked like a wall. It looked like a brick wall, and it had to do with Trump building the brick wall, and it was called Humpty Dumpty Had a Great Fall. But this one has to do with the glass ceilings, because we're getting there. It's sharp, it's hurting us, but we're getting there, and we're considered, if you are a woman of power, then the only way you're heard of is if you become strong, if you become mean, if you become a Chingona. They don't say that to a man, "Oh, he's so rough," but if a woman is like that, oh, she's really rough, but don't you understand, we have to be that way. One has to be that way to get to where she wants to go. My paintings all tell a story. They're always a series. Well, not always, but I like to work on them as a series. I did one called of Alfonsina y el Mar, and that has to do with a song called Alfonsina y el Mar, and it's about Alfonsina Stormy and Storni. She was a poet. She was an author. She lived in Argentina, but she comes from, I think she's Swiss originally, I can't remember right now. And so her father and they came to live in Argentina around the 30s. And in the 30s, authors did not sign their name. They used to use a male's name in order to get published. But she used her name. Then she fell in love, got pregnant out of wedlock, which is something that just did not happen, especially in a Latino country. And then she found out she had breast cancer. She threw herself in El Mar de Plata, which is a beach in Argentina, and she committed suicide. And before she died, she left a letter, and it began, "Déjame dormir, let me sleep." And so another poet picked it up and wrote a poem, and it became a song. And the song is beautiful. My compadre used to sing it all the time, and when he would sing it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And I would imagine all these things. So it talks about how she's on the bottom of the river, and that the waves are lulling her to sleep, and that the sirenitas, the mermaids, are going to guide her, and the seahorses are going to play with her, and things like that. So I painted a woman floating in the ocean, and just the shape of the clothing just in the ocean is also something very beautiful. And so I painted that. I did 3 different Alfonsinas, one with long hair, one with black hair, one, red hair, because it could be anybody. And the other one series I did was La Llorona, which is one of my most famous ones, and the prints of that still sell. And I did 3 Lloronas, and it's a woman sitting by the riverbanks, by the arroyo, and her foot is in the water because she's not going to give up looking for her children, because any mother would do that. And it also tells a story, and everybody thinks of La Llorona is this crazy ghost, mummified woman coming for you because you're playing outside and it's dark, or because you didn't do your homework, or because you said a bad word. But La Llorona was the story, the actual legend was a woman who was done wrong. She was a beautiful native woman. An Espanol came and conquered her, and I use that word, conquered her. They had 2 children, they say, and he went away, and then he came and said he was going to take the children, I'm cutting it very short, take them to Spain because he didn't want them to be Indias, grow up India like her. And he went away and said he was going to come back for the kids. So she went crazy. It was a moment of rage, and she was so upset, she threw her children in the river. And then she was like, what did I do? What did I do? And then that's when, mis hijos, the famous mis hijos, mis hijos. So she's running down the river through the villages that the river or the arroyo went through, looking and screaming, mis hijos, mis hijos, mis hijos. And so, until she fell dead. That's a story of a woman. And that's a story that is still repeating itself. A woman with no power. It continues. Now my story isn't as gloomy as Alfonsina, and the stories that I'm working on, or the paintings, the series that I'm working on right now, have to do, it's called Mestiza. And so my family is like the United Nations. My sister married a man from Saudi Arabia. Her children, her daughters, her children, she has a son too, are Mexican and Saudi. I married a man from Venezuela, from Lebanese descent. I am a Mexican American, and I have a lot of Spanish blood in me. And then my son married a Mexicana with Italian descent. And so there's a lot of that in my family, and then who my nieces and nephews married. So the women, and I was looking at the women, and because I do paint women, and I see their features, and I see and I imagine them in their descent clothes. Like, for example, my daughter-in-law, who's Italian descent, and she has long dark hair and big eyes, and so I'm going to paint her in wearing a huipil or something Mexican, but she's going to have a bottle of Italian wine next to her, and I want to do something like that. I painted my daughter in a huipil, and she's wearing jeans, and she's just sitting there. This was for Dia de los Muertos painting, and she's just sitting there. And it was supposed to be for Dia de los Muertos, but I painted her. That's where I got the idea. And she has a Spanish hat on, and it's the hat is called a cordobés. It's a wide-rimmed hat, and she's sitting there in jeans, and she has a Mexican shirt on with jeans, and behind her is an Arab rug. because she has the Lebanese blood from her father. And so her three are there, the Mexican native, the Espanol from me, and then the rug from her father. So those are the type of paintings I'm working on right now, and it's called Mestiza because it doesn't matter, you're here, you were born here, you are a mestiza, because we have the native blood in us plus the European blood. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I'm really enjoying it. And I've been so busy, I haven't worked on it, so I'm kind of feeling guilty. It's very difficult to see what emotions people have when they're looking at your artwork. And I'm just talking about my artwork in general, and let's say the stiletto. It's hard because you have something in mind and you have this metaphor in your mind, and not everybody is thinking the way you think. If you have somebody stand in front of your stiletto and look at it for a while, that's enough for me, because it's causing some kind of interest, of question. Even if they stand there and they say, what the hell is this about? You know, that's good. You know, they're standing there and looking at it. Some people just walk by, and some people will stop and really look, and that's what I like. And if they think about it, there's some kind of an emotion there. You know, and then sometimes when they look at the title, that's why it's very important to get the title right. If you have a title there, it's good. If they ask you, what does it mean? And you start talking to them like, oh, yes, I like that. And if they come and ask you, it's right, you've already done your job if they come and ask you. How does the Chingona Souls impact the Phoenix community is so positive. It's a tradition now. It's now a tradition, which I think is awesome because we are a people of tradition. You know, there's a lot of, we were brought up Catholic. We are people of tradition, and that's why our people have been stuck together for so long, because of our traditions. But we don't want to talk about that. We're going to talk about how it impacts Phoenix. And because Chingona Souls has become a tradition, it has become a gathering, and it has become, okay, where have we gone to now? What are we doing now? And our artwork shows that. Artwork shows what is happening in the world at the time. It doesn't matter who paints it, what's going on, but the soul of the artist is in their artwork. And what they are going through is showing in the artwork. I don't care what they're working on. And so Chingona Souls, because they do this yearly, it is and it's moving forward. And you could see more and more people coming, and it becoming more popular. I like the message that it has, and I like how people intake them, whether for positive reason or negative reasons, but they still take it in, and it is still something that is necessary. It attracts people in politics, people of power, people who are community leaders, and that's very important. It also gives a chance for them to see the people of Phoenix here and who we are and how we have progressed, because we are progressing. What do I like? I personally like that, the traditional part of it, and being able to see how artists do this. I usually just work on the shoe. I'm a fashion person also as well. A lot of my work has to do with fashion, a lot of my artwork. I like to work at the shoe itself. Would I wear something like this? And like my shoe has, you know, it's dangerous to wear, but at the same time it tells a story. But when I see other artists, what they do with it is amazing. And I like to look at what other artists have done, and I'm like, whoa, how did she come up with this? You know, so personally, that's what I like. The main challenge that I had was not being able to work on my art as much as I wanted to, because we had kids to feed, and so I had to work. And so when you work and you're a school administrator, you don't have time for artwork. People don't realize that a school assistant principal or principal works 12 to 15 hours a day. And on Saturdays, if you have the day off, if there's not something going on at school, I would sit in front of the TV like a zombie. And so I didn't think about artwork. I thought about spending time with my kids. So that was a challenge. And as far as being a female, yeah, females do not get looked at. Their artwork does not get looked at like a male's artwork gets looked at. One of the reasons the Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center got started is because people of color were not making it into the big museums, especially in Scottsdale. There's no way they're gonna go into Scottsdale. And they have Native American stores and museums in there, but the artwork isn't owned by the artist. It's owned by somebody who bought it off of them. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of challenges. There still are a lot of challenges to get your foot in the door. It's hard, it's difficult. I haven't had anybody say, oh, but I could see it in their face, like, oh, and not even look at the piece, just go, oh. And they have been males, but working with the artists at the Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center, most of them were males, the ones that started, that were there. And they were very good mentors to me, and they still are. They're mentors. They have been mentors to a lot of artists. They taught me how to market my stuff, how to make prints, how to market. And it's still a little bit challenging. I think the big challenge right now is minimalism. Everybody has their house with, it looks like a hospital. Everything is white. That's our biggest, as artists, that's our biggest challenge right now, that people are not buying art. But that's going to change, it's a fad. And so artwork is going to come back. Although what is really nice when you walk into a minimalist house and all of a sudden you see this huge painting on the wall, you're like, whoa, okay. How do I explore different cultural experiences? I love looking at I travel a lot. What kind of artwork is being sold right now in this country or in this culture? And I really enjoy that. You learn a lot about people when you look at their artwork. Like, for example, in the Chicano, we tend to paint a lot that has to do with the Aztec and with our ancestors and stuff, because that's what we're finding our identity right now. And that's what that has to do with. I mean, we know who we are and stuff, but we continue to do that. And soon, and we'll be moving on. But you go to Mexico, you still see a lot of figure paintings and stuff like that, but you also see abstracts and a lot of sculpture and when you see Asian art, or the watercolors, and when you see them work, it's amazing. It's amazing to see. I really enjoy all kinds of artwork. One of the things about our culture is, for example, Dia de los Muertos. Other countries come and they think that's bad juju. That's not good. That's witchcraft. That's working with the dead. And then once you explain to them, no, on the contrary, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with life goes on. We continue on, maybe not in this carcass. This is just a carcass. That's what the Kalaka's all about. This is just a carcass, but our soul goes on into something else, and that's where the hummingbird comes in, and the butterflies, What role does fashion play in art and cultural expression? Everything. It says everything about the people and what is happening in that community. You look at society and you know what's going on. You look at what they're wearing and They used to say that the shorter the dress meant that the economy was better. Yeah, when the miniskirts economy was good, when the maxis economy was not good. And so it has a lot to do with that. You look at, for example, the cholo look, urban look, cholo look, whatever you want to call it, in Japan is hot right now. It's super hot. The girls with the hoop earrings, the baggy pants. The baggy pants are not just, everybody's wearing them now. And so it's all of that has to do, it's very important. And I love it because I'm also into fashion. Like I said, you go to a car show, a lowrider car show. That's a whole society in itself. And the way they dress is amazing. The zoot suit, the guy wearing a zoot suit, just imagine, when you imagine the zoot suit, you know how he's standing. He's not in a corner like this, you know how he's standing. There's power there. And so the stiletto, what does that mean? There's so many meanings to the stiletto, but it means power. And so how one dresses says how that society that she or he is living in is all about. I think that through my artwork, because my artwork has to do with women and the plight of women, the story of a woman. If it's La Llorona, if it's Alfonsina Storni, if it's the Mestizas, it's their story. And we've been through a lot as women, as women of color in this country, and we are still fighting. And it seems that in Arizona, we need to really fight more. It says a lot about us. And I like talking about that. I express that because that's who I am, and I express it through my artwork. What does Chingona Souls being a part of the community mean to me? It's an honor. To me, it's an honor that I'm invited to do this every year. Some of the artists are amazing. They're so good. They're artists that I haven't seen since last year, like Backpack and other artists. And then there's some new artists that come out with something completely different and fabulous. I just enjoy being part of it. It's a movement. It is a movement. And I grew up in the 60s. I've always was involved in some kind of movement or another. And so this is a movement, and it's a very positive movement because it has to do with women and it has to do with Latinas to me, and it has to do with art. I mean, what else can I ask for? The message that I can send to Tanya and her team on their 15th anniversary is felicidades. It's not easy. It wasn't easy for her. It wasn't easy for the team. And from what I see happening right now, it's gonna get hard. It's gonna be harder, but she's on the right path. And she is a role model for many. I don't know if I mentioned before, I have done some interviews with Arizona Barrio Stories. There was one woman that I interviewed, and she wrote a book. She's a scientist, she's an engineer. And one of the things that she said was, I didn't have any female role models. And that was the most difficult thing for me. And I said, that's right. What female role models would she have if she's a science engineer, you know? Tanya Torres is a role model, and it's hard. Her position is hard. What she's doing to get this is hard. And to do, and at the same time to have the artistic part of it. I mean, she's using the whole part of her brain. Now I'm getting into the education part of me. It's not easy, but I'm very proud of her. And I'm very proud of her staff that they do this and they continue to do this. Hopefully I'll be here in her next 15 years. Maybe our shoes will be flying by then, or quien sabe. Or the exhibit will be up in the air. You don't know? She's gonna have to find a bigger place for it soon, in a few years, because it's already getting kind of tight. It's so wonderful. Sigue adelante, adelante. We could do this.